Welcome everyone to this evening's webinar, Sumud at Sea, Brothers Bold Stand with the Gaza Flotilla. I'm Roxanne Bruno with Community Alliance for Peace and Justice, an organization advocating for a shift in U.S. foreign policy to support human rights in Palestine and Pakistan. We are so grateful to our 19 co-sponsors. They are listed in the chat, and we're so grateful for their outreach. We're honored to be in coalition with you and look forward to continued cooperation to achieve our shared goal of peace and justice in this world. Just a few quick housekeeping tips before we begin. This webinar is being recorded and we will distribute the recording link to all participants. We do have the chat active and we ask that you use the chat to share information. Please keep discussions respectful and focused, and we will also share the chat transcript as well when we send out the recording link. We will have prepared questions for our panelists with questions and answers from the audience at the end as time allows. Please use the question and answer feature on the bottom of your screen to submit questions, and we will get to as many as we can at the conclusion of the program. I also want to mention that we have all collaborated to come up with 4 actions that you can all take. And we will put the actions in this chat at the end. We will put the actions in the email that has the recording link and the chat. And Community Alliance for Peace and Justice will also be putting the action items on our website, and we will send a notice of that as well. This evening, we're joined by 2 extraordinary guests, Adnaan and Tor Stumo, brothers from Sheffield, Massachusetts, as well as their intrepid mom, Nadia Milleron. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Adnaan is a maritime captain who helmed the vessel Makeno, and Tor is a maritime engineer who was aboard the Huga. These men served as vital crew members in this year's 3rd flotilla to Gaza, the Global Sumud Flotilla, and lived to tell the tale of their harrowing interception and detention and inspire us with their unyielding commitment to justice. Before we hear their stories firsthand, let's set the stage. Let's have a quick look at the history and scale of the Freedom Flotilla, a movement that's been challenging Israel's naval blockade of Gaza for nearly 2 decades through non-violent, people-powered action. The roots of the global Sumud Flotilla trace back to the Freedom Flotilla that arose from the Free Gaza movement founded in 2006 amid Israel's war on Lebanon, as a grassroots effort to deliver humanitarian aid and expose the siege strangling Palestinian life in Gaza. Between 2008 and 2016, activists launched 31 boats carrying medical supplies, building materials, and messages of hope. 5 of those successfully breached the blockade, proving that ordinary people could pierce the iron grip of occupation. But these missions came at a very steep cost. The most infamous was the 2010 Gaza Freedom Flotilla, when Israeli commandos raided the flagship in international waters, killing 10 of the activists and injuring dozens aboard a vessel with over 600 passengers. Subsequent efforts in 2011, 2015, and 2018 were all intercepted or diverted to Israeli ports, yet they all amplified global outrage and kept the blockade of Gaza in the spotlight. Now we fast forward to 2025, and the global Sumud Flotilla emerges as the boldest chapter yet. Named after Sumud, the Arabic word for steadfast perseverance, this iteration drew over 500 100 activists from more than 44 countries across 6 continents, including humanitarians, doctors, lawyers, clergy, artists, and high-profile figures like climate activist Greta Thunberg. We will now turn to our incredible activists to share their experiences, and we thank them so much again for taking the time to be here with us this evening. And now we can begin. I'm going to ask the first question of Adnaan as the elder brother. The elder brother probably always is picked on to go first. I'd like to begin by asking you to share what inspired you to join the flotilla as the captain of the Meccano. And also, given the flotilla's real commitment to nonviolence, how did you prepare for the potential challenges of Israel's naval blockade?
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real pleasure to speak to you all. I think that for me, it was very slow, given the absolute desperation on the ground in Gaza. It was kind of a steady escalation of involvement for me. I first began working as an activist, in the background um, around October 7th, and then very quickly joined a movement in Washington. To me that our government was many, many steps behind where the people of this country, let alone the world, are. I decided that it was important to get on the ground in Gaza, sorry, in the West Bank and inside 48 lines. So I went and worked there doing protective presence, teaching kids, working on upgrading agricultural technologies and building youth centers. And then once
Wow.
I heard from the DC folks that I was in touch with that they were desperate for captains and people with maritime experience on this Gaza flotilla, I felt that it was the only thing that I could do. I felt that it was and I've heard this from so many people who were involved, that it was like an inevitability. It was um, as soon as they heard about it, as soon as they got accepted, it was just there was no question in any of our minds that this was a fundamentally necessary thing, that this was not a solution, but a piece, a step forward in the march of history to the liberation of Palestine. You asked about the interception,
Nonviolence.
the nonviolence. I will say, like, for the training that we had in Barcelona, we did a very, very serious job of training in nonviolence, in making sure that we were not exposing. We knew that we were going into a violent situation. We were breaking an illegal military blockade, or attempting to, but we had a very serious commitment to not escalating and giving any excuse to the occupation forces to shoot us, to bomb our vessels. I think that was a very good calculation, because we understood that although we had 42 vessels that arrived, and those 42 constituted a greater number of vessels than the ever than all of the flotillas together that had ever attempted to break the siege before. We understood that uh, the occupation forces were likely going to be able to stop us, and we didn't want to. Um, our power is in mass movement. Power is in the ability to mobilize people all over the world, to block ports, to block city centers, to speak up for Gaza, for the genocide. Our power is not in trying to engage in hand-to-hand combat with the IOF. So we're
Absolutely.
committed to maximizing our power where it is, and not trying to make a make an idea make a some kind of combative engagement where it's not necessary.
That was just so incredibly brave of both of you and so selfless. And Tor, I would like to ask you the same question. What inspired you to join the fleet as an engineer? And was it to be in solidarity with your brother for the decision, or did you feel similarly all on your own and like together you're a force?
Yeah, good question. I heard that the flotilla needed maritime professionals from an organizer here in DC, and I passed that knowledge on to Adnan. We knew they needed captains. By the time the flotilla left, 139,000 people had applied to be part of it, and I wasn't sure how desperately they needed people who had sailed, people who had worked on engines. Um, I thought that everything was all covered, which was absolutely false. They needed a lot more. They needed more medics. They needed more media people. They needed more crew members. And I heard from Adnan when he was there that everything was not covered. They did need more people, and so I I didn't want to join because of unless I would be useful. I didn't want to join as an ego thing. I was doing work with DC volunteering, but Adnan told me they did need people, and so I joined. And it was very, very good to be there with my brother. Being in prison with him, we were in the same cells the whole time through. It would have been much harder to be alone, and doing it in solidarity, of course, with the Palestinian people, solidarity with activists from all over the world, but also my flesh and blood really meant a lot to me.
Well, thank you. Adnan, this question is for you. So you were on the flotilla while everyone was on the flotilla for over 30 grueling days, and you navigated nearly 2,000 miles, which for someone like me, I was reading about these things in kilometers. I don't really know how big a kilometer is. So I sort of converted it to miles. And then I was trying to visualize what is 2,000 miles, and it's nearly 3/4 of the width of the United States from east to west, or west to east, if you like. Nearly 3/4 of the width of the United States on the water, um, expecting that anything could happen at any time. And you faced drone strikes, sabotage attempts, and the constant shadow of the Israeli Navy. Um, can you share with us what happened when the Israeli forces attacked your vessel? how your crew responded, how you were able to hold them off for an hour, and also the other things that you witnessed that were happening to other boats, such as water cannon being used on them, and some horribly awful thing called skunk water.
Yeah, well, the the mileage itself is once you're offshore for a few hundred miles, it's something that you get used to. And for me and my crew, it wasn't a big deal, but it was we we were forced to leave Spain from the Barcelona main port because the organizers of the flotilla were very worried that we would start getting our vessels impounded due to uh, bureaucratic warfare. They occupation. The U.S. the did different allies of that support the extermination of people in Gaza, and there's a lot of political power there, and we were running very low on possibilities to be able to leave safely and be able to get our fleet out and safely into international waters. And the real problem with that was that there was a storm coming down from the north that hit us the first night that we left Barcelona. And it wasn't a big storm. It was a little gale, but to people who hadn't been on the ocean before, it was very difficult. And there was a lot of seasickness. There was a lot of people thinking that the world might be ending any minute.
Wow. I'm sure I would have been someone like that. That's a terrifying thought to me. Be on the open water. Oh, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all good. It was something that was both a blessing and a curse because it broke a lot of the things that were kind of weak. A lot of these boats were very old. A lot of these boats hadn't been taken care of properly in a
Wow.
while, and we fixed them up in a hurry, but there were a lot of fixes that were kind of half done, and we got to learn what those were because they promptly failed, and we had a lot of boats kind of floating around, and a lot of people kind of losing their minds a little bit in that first gale. And some of the people, we had one person on my boat who was very committed to sailing to Gaza, but she was just so freaked out by that first storm that she felt that she couldn't continue. And I have all respect in the world for her and for the work that she'll continue to do elsewhere. But I was glad to know at the first in the first couple of days that you know it wasn't the right fit for her, and that
Right.
being on the water, it takes a certain kind of grit that is not easy to dredge up and to come by. So we ended up with a very solid crew that we were able to once we hit the more serious attacks from the drones, from uh, I mean, there were submarines around us, and once we got the final interception, we were a very tight-knit team, and I was very appreciative of that.
And so you held off being captured. I'm not sure what the correct term is, but you were captured and
Yeah.
um you held off the Navy for one whole hour. That's what I've read. Um, and then you used your nonviolence training, I guess, when you finally were
Yeah, I
captured?
mean, when we saw the interception boats coming in, first of all, we heard them more than we saw them because there was a lot of boats that were illegally, without lights at all,
Oh,
and they were driving through the middle of our flotilla, cutting, and they had jamming devices on them that were cutting off
wow,
all of our communications, so we couldn't use our radio, we couldn't use. Uh, any of our internet. We couldn't
wow,
communicate with each other in any way because they wanted to isolate and knock out the boats one by one. Um, and we saw it was a lot of high-speed military vessels driving around in circles, sometimes shining spotlights on us to disorient. And then we saw many vessels being attacked by high-power water cannons. And we eventually got hit by one of those water cannons. By that time, I had realized that there were only two boats that were equipped with those water cannons, so I knew that the longer we held on, um, the closer the rest of our flotilla could get to Gaza. I knew that they
wow.
probably had I'd seen on the Israeli news that they had brought up 600 reservists to augment their forces for the boarding parties. So I knew that that probably wasn't an issue. I mean, once they boarded us, they'd have to have boarding teams for every boat. But as far as the water cannons, I only ever saw two of them, and I decided to try to hold on as long as possible in order to make those water cannons. Unavailable for blasting other boats and for other boats to be able to get closer to shore. And so
Oh,
at that
wow.
point, all of us were out on deck because I had many friends who had boats that had autopilots, and those autopilots, were able to drive the boat solo, so they were able to go below, and the water cannons would pound their hulls, pound their decks, and destroy a lot of the things on the boats and but they were able to kind of stay safe from them below decks. We didn't have an autopilot, so we were all exposed to those elements, and I had a number of crew and participants that got really hammered badly by them, and I
Well,
myself
what
got beat
I'm
up.
sorry to interrupt. I'm trying to understand. I am very ignorant about what a water cannon is, so I just kind of have a vague idea in my mind that it would be like a very super powerful stream of water. Is that what a water cannon is?
They're pumping seawater up into a high
Ah,
pressure system, and then it's like
uh,
if you had a garden hose times a million,
oh, wow. Okay.
blasting. I'd say,
Wow.
that it would,
Wow.
if our boat was open, it would have sunk it pretty quickly. I mean,
Yeah,
water's,
I can't imagine. I mean, a garden hose hurts if it's on full
yeah.
force and you like hit yourself with it. It can
Well,
bruise you. Just a
this
garden
is
hose.
this is a different level.
Okay.
This was
And just
like, uh, you've seen the fire hoses that firefighters used to put out big blaze.
yes, yes,
It's
yes.
kind of on that level, I would say.
Okay.
But from very close range, it can do a lot of damage. So my
Mm.
one of the girls on the boat was a very small person from Malaysia, and she got her hip blasted badly by that, and she was saying that she was in a lot of pain. Um, it blasted the hatch on my boat open, and I tried to ask one of my crew to stand up and close it. And as he did, he got hit square in the back, and he was thrown all bodily across the boat when it hit him. And so we held on as long as we could, but
That was so incredibly heroic. That was so heroic of you to try to be the
I
target
I
so
had
other
to
boats would get
balance
closer. That's
the
amazing.
the 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 safety of my people,
Yeah.
with any good we were doing. And I knew that they weren't going to stop. It did take them 12 hours to take us all out, and the sun
Wow.
was well up by the time they got the last boats. But I we were well aware by that point that they were committed to stopping us, and that unless some kind of divine intervention occurred, we weren't going to be able to make it to the
Wow.
beach of Gaza. So that's how.
Thank you. Thank you. That's incredible. And Tor, this is a very difficult question to ask you. You've shared some harrowing details about being beaten by soldiers after refusing to hand over your passport, and that you had your hands zip tied behind your back so tightly for such a long time that you have sustained some nerve damage to at least one hand. And we are all wondering, how has that physical and psychological toll affected you since your release? And are you recovering well?
Yeah, I mean, we all have seen for many years what the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, uh, well, the Lebanese and South Lebanon, all over in the Middle East and the world, how people are being affected by Israel, how Israelis are killing them, torturing them, and starving them. Um, we were all prepared for that when we joined the mission. We knew there was a high likelihood that the Israeli government would commit their act of piracy and seize our privately owned vessels in international waters. We knew they would commit the war crime of seizing and stealing humanitarian aid en route to a starving civilian population. And we knew that if they intercepted us and if they abducted us and took us to prison, that they wouldn't treat us kindly. Um, they do not enjoy the spotlight that these missions shine on their inhumanity and their brutality. So I was very prepared for something. I didn't know exactly what would happen, but I knew that there would be beatings. I knew that there would be torture. And they didn't torture me, but they did, I think I think they were under orders to be as nonviolent as possible, but their muscle memory is so violent, it just escapes out of them. All the North Africans and the Arabs were beaten as they got onto the bus to the prison. When I got on the bus from the port, I was blindfolded, my hands were cuffed behind my back, and as I got on the bus, 4 or 5 prison guards beat me. They punched me in the stomach, in the back. They clubbed me on the back of the neck. Um, Blacked out my vision for a few seconds, and they threw me into a cell. They kept me in this solitary cell on the bus for about 4 or 5 hours with my hands very, very tightly cuffed behind my back. Um, and they got off the bus at the prison. I was not expecting to really be looking forward to a prison cell. That was what was keeping me going on the bus. Would go between my hands, being cut by the handcuffs, and I'd try to alleviate the cutting on my wrists, and that would put pressure on my shoulders, which were cramping from my hands being behind my back. So they took me off the bus and they took off my cuffs, and I was expecting the blindfold to come off too, but they put me in another much more tight set of handcuffs, and very quickly I could no longer feel my hands. Felt like a buzzing in my hands, like a swarm of bees in each hand, and I lost consciousness because of the lack of blood flow. Um, and they saw me on the ground and they kicked me awake and they tried to get me up, but I couldn't sit up because I couldn't remain in consciousness. They loosened my handcuffs, but I still couldn't get up. And after a while, they took me to the cell, took off my cuffs, and took off my blindfold, and I saw that my wrists were all cut up all over, and I couldn't feel anything and from my left thumb to my wrist. And it's still that way. The sensation has not returned. I thought, so I'm going to have to go to a specialist and see about that. But, I'm an American citizen. We have a, quote unquote, special relationship with Israel, where, they call us their greatest ally. This is how they treat a humanitarian aid worker who is a civilian of a citizen of their greatest ally. Everyone should know how they must treat and do treat, and we've seen them treat Palestinian hostages and captives who they want to kill and they want to erase and they want to drive out.
Yes.
So knowing that, the Palestinians in Gaza and all over occupied Palestine have endured much worse and are still fighting and they're still keeping their heads high and they're still resisting, it gave me and others the strength to push past this and keep fighting ourselves because they provide an example to us. And people call us heroes or leaders, and it's very kind, but it is not to us. It does not feel correct because the heroes are the people who have no protection. They have no strong government protecting them, and they still fight, and they lose their family, and they lose their limbs, and they get thrown in prison with no charges for decades, and they continue providing the example to us. So um, it honestly didn't feel that bad because that was on all of our minds.
So, I just want to say that before you just said that you're not heroes, I wanted to acknowledge that the attendees in this webinar, through this webinar chat, as well as other communication sources that are coming up across the bottom of my computer screen, are all saying what remarkable heroes you both are. So brave and so heroic, and now it's coming through how humble you are as well. So, I mean, I just want to echo that, and you know, thank you. So, you can read the chat later, but yes, you're remarkable men
I
for.
do I do want to push back on that a little bit, Roxanne. I mean, we do have very high profile figures with us. Greta Thunberg, Nelson Mandela's grandson was with us. People, very, famous people, activists
And
who
they
are
were
very
mistreated as
experienced.
well. We know.
But so many of us are just very, very normal people. And everyone in this chat, everyone who wants to make a difference, you don't have to be heroes and to come and join these movements, whether in your town or in your state or nationwide or in a flotilla like this. So many just very, very normal people are doing this. And um, the this we're not heroes. We're just normal people, and the point of the flotilla to a degree is to show normal people like us that we can step up and participate. So I appreciate the language, but um, I think it's important to emphasize the normalcy and that this should be a normal act because our governments and our institutions aren't doing it, and the citizens, normal people, should step up.
And that's all we have. I mean,
That is all we have. Yeah.
we have the mass of humanity saying this is outrageous. This is
Yes.
Yes.
enough. And we have a few thousand elites who are controlling the most powerful governments in the world who are saying no. We're going
Yeah.
to keep sending the bombs.
Yeah.
We're going to keep allowing this, and we have to throw our weight against them, and that's what it is. It's our only tool
Yes.
to stop this is our the mass weight of humanity against these
Yeah.
brutal, sadistic owners of
Yes.
of government and of military industrial corporations that are making massive money off of this.
Right.
So Adnan, let's just keep talking about this point. So, I read that you called the mission a success because it actually put a huge spotlight on the atrocities that are happening and the fact that, international law, I guess it's international law that was broken. You were captured on
Both.
international water, right?
It's maritime law,
Okay.
which, as a captain sailing in international waters, you are under that. It's outside of any specific country's jurisdiction. And so they committed an act of piracy by forcibly seizing our vessels. Um, and under international humanitarian law, it is a war crime and a breach of the Geneva Conventions to block a humanitarian aid convoy. So they committed a double crime in the act of seizing our vessels.
And it was an amazing success in that somehow, and I hope you can shed some light on this for us, but somehow the flotilla was able to coordinate with movements on the land. So I think we all read about like dock workers striking across Italy, and how did that happen? How was the flotilla able to coordinate with movements on land like that?
Well, I mean, the reality is that the flotilla was mostly not the boats. I mean, it was the
Okay.
boats were the kind of the center of it,
The focal
the
point.
focal point of it. But most of the people who were working, I mean, we had, I think we were 486 people who were captured and thrown in prison. But there were over 2,000 people who were working on land and and that's not even, I mean, these are just the organizers who were doing liaison
Okay.
networks with the groups, with the dock workers, with the mass strikes, the mass marches that popped off all over the world, from Indonesia and Malaysia to Spain and Italy to the US and Canada, and in Africa and Latin America. And those were the people who and those were the movements that really made I mean, 42 boats sailing to Gaza without um, that backup, without that uh, mass network, would have been number one, less effective, or ineffective. Number two, we would have been probably in prison for a very long time, because the occupation army would have loved to slap us, to punish us as much as possible if they didn't have their embassies being inundated with uh, phone calls, with emails, with people blocking them, chaining them up, and shutting down whole cities all over the world where the Zionists were active. Uh, but number two, it really, I mean, I don't know what number I'm on, but the thing is, the labor power of it's people who fundamentally disagree with, who hate the occupation, who hate what they're doing to Palestinian people, and yet they're forced, because of their job, every day to load bombs onto ships and send them over to the ports in Ashdod and Ashkelon, and they just stood up and said, "No, we're not doing this anymore." And the only thing that we did was kind of gave them an opportunity to center that action around, and to stand up together, because a lot of times people are very alone in these kinds of
So
or they
I
feel
think
they're
we're
alone.
getting the overarching theme is that it takes all of us. It's going to take all of us. Like
Yeah,
whatever is happening, it's going to take all of us to do something, to take some action, to come together, to be a force, to make it
That's right.
stop.
And I mean, the thing that we can never forget is that the we are the people who make life happen. We make all of the things that we rely on to survive.
Yeah.
We make the world that we live in, whether we're social workers, whether we're doctors and nurses, whether we're teachers, whether we're plumbers and carpenters. The world does not go on without that. And so we
Yeah.
can shut it down anytime.
yeah,
And we just have to be willing and organized to do that because we can cut the throat of the system
Yeah.
anytime as long as we're together.
That's
exactly
such an
right.
amazing message and an inspiring reminder for all of us. And thank you. And Tor, I would like to ask you, so drawing on all of your experiences, and there were just so many experiences. But similar to what Adnan just shared with us about why he thinks it was a success and what it took to coordinate all of those actions, and what we can all do, what do you feel are some effective advocacy efforts that we can all take? What did you learn that you would like to share?
Yeah, it's the question, right? It's the question that everyone is asking themselves.
Yes,
And it's the question we both were asking ourselves before this mission. Um, Part of the reason both of us, a big part of the reason both of us joined was, of course, to break this illegal naval blockade on Gaza. Another part was very personal and to a degree, selfish. It feels so mentally destructive to see these children being blown up, being shot, being starved in front of our eyes, and we can't do anything about it. We
yeah,
want to make a tangible impact, to make some effect, to stop this somehow with our hands. Um, and all the things we tried, it just, it feels like a dead end. It feels like screaming into the void. And so part of going on this flotilla was making a tangible impact with our skills, with our hands, with our bodies, with our minds, contributing directly to uh, freeing the Palestinians, and allowing them to free themselves and distribute food themselves and provide their own medical care. I mean, what Adnan said is totally right. These people who are against us, yes, they have power. They have extreme influence in governments, in media, um, in in any number of concentrated organizations of power. But what they don't have are the numbers. We have the numbers. We are by far, I mean, we are the 99%, right? But there's a big problem. We're not organized, and even with this flotilla, where millions of dollars were being funneled through grassroots efforts, we had many boats, many people. We still lacked competent people with practical skills in many roles. We were so short-staffed. Everyone had a million jobs, and we could have used so many people. We could have used HR people. We could have used people who are just good with spreadsheets, who are good with sourcing things, manning things, logistics, problem solving, tech. Um, and uh, that is something that we need to work on now. The best part of this global Samud flotilla movement was the global aspect of it. When you're in
absolutely.
prison with all these these movers and shakers and powerful people, um, the Greta Thunbergs of the world, the Mandelas of the world, but also labor organizers and politicians and just effective organizers and activists, that creates a really strong bond. And we continue making the same mistakes over and over again. We continue reinventing the wheel because we don't know what others have done. Right now, we are in a process of getting very organized. And getting advice from each other and collaborating on movements all over the globe. And so something that I am doing is I'm we're creating a private encrypted database of skilled people, just anyone anyone with skills, HR skills, logistic skills, media skills, people who one thing we needed on the ships is we had all this food, but a lot of boats didn't have any real competent cooks. We needed a menu to like
Oh
make,
gosh.
efficient
Oh
use of
gosh.
this food.
Oh,
Adnan is a
oh,
fantastic cook, but some boats
oh
were
no.
I'm
genuinely
against menus, so I
Oh
disregard the
no.
last one.
disregarded. No, everyone has skills that are needed. If you're just good at herding cats, if you're just good at solving problems, we need you. And so after this event is over, we're gonna send out a form, and it's gonna ask for your name, and it's gonna ask for your contact information, and it's gonna ask what skills you have and where you're based. And when we continue ramping up these global actions, don't forget, before this movement, we had single sailboats going to Gaza. On this movement, we had 42 ships, 486 people. We had a warship from Spain, two warships from Italy, a warship from Greece, a warship from Turkey, a Red Crescent ship from Turkey, two Turkish military drones. This rate of change is moving so quickly. People need to get plugged in and they need to get active. And
In
so,
in April, it's going to be hundreds.
yes.
It's going to be hundreds.
And it's not just the flotilla, it's marches to Gaza, it's actions here all around the world. So please,
That's
after this is
amazing.
over, put in your name, put in your skills, put in your contact information. We do need you. And if you think, oh, how could I help? What can I do? I'm just a normal person. Trust me, you would be very surprised how useful and effective you can be when we can match the right skills to the right moment. And we need to make that network possible.
That's incredible that you are trying to fill that gap of connecting people. And we hear over and over from really staunch activists that coalition building, networking, helping each other, not reinventing the wheel is the way to go. And I mean, that's why tonight we enjoyed 19 co-sponsors helping us to spread the word of this webinar. And that really is the way. And we applaud you for trying to close that gap yourself. Like, okay, we need this. I'm going to make it. That's amazing. And we will be listing that in the chat that links to your form, and we will be sending it out in email, and it'll be on CapJ's website as well. So that is
Wonderful.
wonderful. That is really, truly wonderful. And I think we have about 12 minutes left, and we have a lot of questions from the audience. I don't think we will get through all of them. There are at least 12 questions that were submitted in Q&A, and there were questions submitted in the chat as well. And so let's see. Oh, well, here's a quick one that we can get to tour. If people fill out the form, is it assured that their information is confidential? That's just a question from the audience.
Sure. We're going to be storing, at least initially, the information on a database called CryptPad. It's secure. We used it on the Global Sumud Flotilla. It worked pretty well. We have cybersecurity experts in the movement in DC who I'm working with to create a protocol to keep everyone's personal information safe. If you do join this and you want to contribute your skills, um, we will be very judicious in connecting you uh, to the places where those skills are most needed and to avoid, spreading your information around. Of course, people need to be connected with each other, but also there's a high need for security and privacy, and we created a lot of those protocols with the Global Samud Flotilla, with the 139,000 people who applied and the over
Wow.
500 participants, including the ground team. So don't
So
worry,
that's a
we do
yes.
have,
That's
yeah,
a
we have
yes.
experience with this,
Okay.
and we're going to continue to raise the bar on that.
Thank
One
you.
other thing is we I'm sure there will be more questions, people with really creative ideas. So I'm going to drop my email down in the chat. And after this, if you have ideas, if you have questions, if you want to know more, get more involved, you can contact me
That's
directly.
awesome. Thank you. That's awesome. And again, we will share the whole chat transcript. So that is absolutely awesome.
Right.
So we have a question about the Israeli Navy. The question was asked, um, they believe that the Israeli Navy is about 100 vessels, and they were wondering how many of those, if you had any idea, I know you said they were circling and separating and everything, how many of those were mobilized to try to stop the flotilla?
Yeah, it's hard to get an exact number due to the kind of chaotic situation in the night interception. Also, what does a vessel mean? Are you talking about like um, major, like are you talking about, like destroyers and interceptors and these kinds of like larger vessels or
Speedboats.
speed. I mean, little ribs. The most of the vessels that were ended up being used to hit us and actually bring people on board were rigid inflatable boats, ribs. So those have
Wow,
a high speed engine, but they're
wow,
not really like they're not they're not big vessels. They're very low to the water. They're very fast, and I don't know if that counts. Uh, I would say it's probably in the range of, um, they had a vessel for every vessel to hit and board us, plus a couple of dozen, maybe
wow,
70 vessels or something. That so
wow,
it was it. I
wow.
would feel safe saying it
Okay,
was the majority of their capacity,
wow,
especially considering
wow,
that uh, they had to mobilize over 600 reservists.
Right.
wow,
That's what we read in the news, that to
wow.
even to to man those boats. I mean, some of the big boats are our lead ships were hit by a bit more professional special forces, but you know, one thing we didn't talk about is, a lot of our smaller vessels, including the ones that that Tor and I were on and running. These were just like 18-year-old kids that were called up to get out in the middle of the night and intercept, incarcerate
Right.
humanitarian mission. They were
Wow,
throwing up. They had no idea what they were doing. They were trying to
wow,
drive. They were trying to figure out how to drive these boats. I mean, I'm honestly kind of amazed that as many boats even made it to port as they did. I mean,
Yeah.
they were
wow,
they
wow.
have
That is
the
just
engines on
wrong in
my boat
every
and Tor's
way.
boat. They nearly blew them up just trying to get them
Yeah.
Wow,
from 60 miles out. I mean, these kids didn't know what the hell they were doing. So when this becomes 10 times bigger in April, I don't think they'll have a snowball's chance.
wow.
Yeah.
That is just wrong in every aspect. Like everything that you said is it's just unconscionable. We have multiple people asking, not even through the Q&A feature, but people really want to know what happened to all the physical stuff. What happened to the boats? What happened to your personal possessions? What happened to any uneaten food? What happened to the aid that you were trying to bring? Do you know?
There's no, I don't think, I think the aid is probably sitting in the boats along with everything else at the
Yeah.
port. There's almost no chance that that's not the case.
And what happened
Unless
to it?
unless they ran out of space at the port, and if they didn't have an overflow place, they were talking about taking boats out and sinking them offshore.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So no
that's a
one is
possibility. We
getting
did
boats
see
back.
the Madeleine and the Handala sitting at the port from months ago as we came in.
Okay.
And we know that there is a legal process to try to obtain some of these boats. We've gotten apparently the Freedom Flotilla has gotten one boat back and gotten reimbursed for a couple of boats, but I mean, they've had to fight very hard in the courts for that
Yeah.
to happen, and mostly it hasn't been successful. It is true that you know, we have um, been, unable to really like verify any of the information about where our actual boats are or where any of our belongings are. We were allowed to take one little personal bag off the boats with us, and most of us haven't gotten that back. Most of us,
Oh, I'm
when
sorry.
we got
I'm
to
sorry.
Jordan. No, I mean, listen, it's the least of our worries. We expected it, and
Yeah.
when we got
So,
to Jordan, there was nothing there waiting for us. There's a few people who, their belongings were shipped to a different country, and they're
Yeah.
trying to get it sent to them. But
Greta got her stuff back. She got her suitcase that now reads "Whore Greta" on it.
right,
And as for the aid,
that's
we know
pathetic.
that they were
Uh,
urinating on the aid in at least one of the boats in the actually the flagship vessel. And
so I'm
you may
very
hear more about that actually soon.
Yeah, that's pathetic. I don't even have words for that. I am afraid that we are going to run out of time. We have so many more questions. I'm going to be greedy and ask, like, supposedly we have 3 minutes. I'm going to greedily ask if we can try to answer two questions. Probably not possible, but
we'll
these
go fast.
questions keep coming up. So people are asking, and there was a prepared question, and I skipped over it. But people are asking if you could say more about how you were treated in the prison. So you were held in the prison for 5 days under horrible conditions, with at least 40 other prisoners that you know of from the flotilla. And people are asking, did you see Palestinian prisoners? Did you see how any other prisoners were treated? We
Yeah.
understand that you two joined, on top of everything else, you joined a hunger strike to be in solidarity with the people of Gaza. And people would like to know, what was it like in the prison? And did you see Palestinians too?
So there were 486 of us in the prison. There was one wing for the women, two for the men, and then they consolidated the men to one wing. They cleared all of the Kitsiap prison has Palestinian captives there, but they cleared them all out. We never saw them.
It's
Wow.
huge.
It's a huge complex.
It's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah.
Okay,
If
wow.
you just look it up on Google Maps, it goes on for miles and miles.
They have many, many, many people without charge there, including children. But we were, it was very clear that any way that they could punish us, they wanted to take advantage of. They woke us up at all hours of the night with dogs, riot shields, guns, rifles pointed right in our faces with laser sights. Um, they denied the diabetics insulin for 3.5 days, and we chanted every night for insulin. And this is what they said to us. This is an exact quote: "No doctors for animals." And that's how they saw us, humanitarian workers. When people talk about this being a genocide and them looking at Palestinians as animals, I think they look at them as less than animals. But We got a lovely nighttime visit at 3 a.m. by their terrorist minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, who came in with cameras and woke us up, had us huddled, sitting back against the wall with guns pointed in our faces. A singularly unimpressive person with no presence and no spine. Um, and I know I requested a doctor every day for the nerve damage in my hand. A judge promised me to have a doctor. They promised our embassy that I would have a doctor. Never got it. People with serious mental conditions who needed medication never got it. I mean, women did not get feminine hygiene products and were because of the stress, many of them were on their periods and were bleeding all over the floor. Um, they took whatever they could to punish us. Um, yeah, I mean,
I,
they
I'm
are what
so
they are.
sorry.
We know what
I'm
they are.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. And I'm just going to be greedy and just ask the last question because so many people are asking just about how the US did or did not support you when you were imprisoned. And were there any officials who helped you at all?
You know, it's kind of funny because the closest allies to the occupation government were the people who had the least help. And it makes sense when you think about it, but we
Yeah,
weren't really expecting that from the
right.
beginning. I mean, it was the Malaysians, the folks from Spain and Italy and Turkey and actually a lot of the North Africans who got out earlier because
Yeah.
their countries were you know actually worried about them and for good reason.
The countries who sent warships got their citizens out first.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point. And the countries like the UK and the US especially had no concern for their citizens.
Yeah.
When they showed up, they told us nothing and gave us quite a bit of misinformation that made us think that we had to sign all the documents
Yeah.
that the Israelis wanted us to sign and capitulate and to have any chance of getting out. And they didn't have any urgency or any care for us. They didn't show up for days and days after we were there. So, uh, it makes sense. They don't they care more for their buddies in genocide than they do for their own citizens, and we understand that, and we hope to make them pay for it as much as possible. But no help, no help.
Wow. Uh, I think that I don't even have words. I think I speak for everyone who is watching. Thank you for everything you did. And by the way, it's not normal and it's not average. And you were selfless people and brave. And everyone can do things. Everyone can be brave sometimes. This was huge. And the spotlight that you're shining on the situation is amazing, and we will do our very, very best to make sure that your words are seen and heard by as many people as possible. It's an absolutely valiant effort, and thank you for agreeing to share this with us, especially so soon after your return. Um, I am putting into the chat some of the actions that we talked about. And again, these actions will be in the email and they will be on the website. And they will certainly include the link to your form tour. Um, I
Thank
am
you.
getting a little bit cut off in the chat here, so I'm going to do it in two parts. But thank you so much. And Nadia, thank you. Thank you for making these men. Thank you very, very, very much.
Really appreciate everybody for coming out
Yeah.
and listening to this, and I know that there's between everybody who's here in this Zoom call, it's there's many thousands of hours, and um, you know we're all making noise, but if we once we can consolidate that down to um, actual um, you know economic damage to the occupation state, that's what we're really hoping that all of this comes from. I mean, all of the social media, um, all of the marches, everything that can make them afraid, but until they actually feel the damage in their
Yes,
pocketbooks and in their businesses.
Yeah.
That's
that
where it
that
comes
is a
from.
powerful message for us all to keep in mind. Thank you again. Thank you so much. And I'm sure that, again, I speak for everyone. We wish you both very, very well in recovering from your experiences. And thank you again.
Appreciate everyone, and especially you, Roxanne, for putting this all together. There are action steps, so Roxanne will be sending those out. So there are clear requests that Adnan and Tor have of everyone. So please keep your eye out for that.
We're all going to keep working together. Thank you all for coming. Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Night.